Welcome to the Bluegrass family. We are in my favorite place today, the kitchen. We are cooking up a very classic weeknight family meal I'm sure many people have had before in their childhood and even as adults. The classic meatloaf, mashed potatoes, and fresh garden green beans. This is one of my favorite recipes to cook and eat. So if you all want to make it for your own family, stay around and you can have the recipe. We have been getting so much rain here lately, which I'm super happy that we have been because everything has been busting out and blooming, and our garden is tilled, it's plowed, tilled, and ready to be planted, and we hope to be planting it in the next week. We cannot wait for that. So all of the rain we are happy to get, but it's definitely made everything pretty muddy. So we can't wait to just get outside and enjoy the weather. It's going to warm up this week, and we are so ready for it. To start this recipe, I actually use 2 pounds of ground beef. I always make a 2-pound meatloaf because, believe it or not, it usually all gets ate one way or the other. My husband will take it to work with him the next day, or my kids will eat it for lunch the next day. So believe me, we don't usually have much left over. My family absolutely loves meatloaf. It's one of their favorite meals. So I start off with 2 pounds of ground beef. If you don't have, and I have a family of 5, so if you have a smaller family, you might want to do a pound or a pound and a half. But like I said, it definitely takes 2 pounds to feed my family. To start off, I just get my hands in with the meat, with the thawed meat. And I know not everybody wants to use their hands, but it's just easier to break it up that way for me. And there was a few little pieces that were kind of still frozen, so I was just making sure that those were broken up nicely. So I just make sure that it's all broken up to where whenever I add everything in, I can mix it all. And I use my hands the whole entire time, so as I add in the seasonings and everything and the eggs and all that, I still use my hands to mix up the meatloaf. It just, like I said, always works better for me. If you want to use a spoon, you can, but my hands just seem to do the trick. I go ahead and mix in about a teaspoon of Worcestershire sauce and a teaspoon of liquid smoke, give or take. I obviously didn't measure this out. And then I did about a 1/4 cup of ketchup, give or take a little less on that. Like I said, this is 2 pounds of meatloaf. And then I also add in a little bit of barbecue sauce, and that is it for the seasonings other than a few dashes of salt and pepper. Next up, I go ahead and crush some Ritz Crackers. So I use 2 sleeves of Ritz Crackers to mix in with my meatloaf. I have tried saltines, I have tried breadcrumbs, but my absolute favorite thing to add in with meatloaf is definitely the Ritz Crackers. They're so buttery and crunchy and delicious. I go ahead and grab 2 of our farm fresh eggs, and I crack those in with the Ritz Crackers and the meatloaf. I use 2 eggs in this recipe because, like I said, I'm using 2 pounds of ground beef, and you definitely need enough eggs to hold all of that together. We're gonna go ahead and fold it all together. So since it has the breadcrumbs and the eggs already in there and everything else, I just like to fold it kind of on top of itself, and then also just massage it in with my fingers. And then next we're gonna add in some raw milk. We just got some raw milk this week, and I've been adding it to lots of different recipes, and I have absolutely loved having it on hand. I already had some bacon thawed, so instead of not using all of it, I wanted to make good use of it, and so I decided to wrap my meatloaf in bacon and then use the rest of it to cook up and add to the green beans. I had never actually wrapped my meatloaf in bacon, and I really liked how it turned out. It was super crunchy and delicious on top. We recently started purchasing our ground beef and some of our pork from a place here locally in Kentucky. The beef that we are purchasing has been grass-fed, so that just makes me feel a lot better about the health of the cow and the meat that we're eating and consuming. And then obviously the bacon is way better as well because it's raised here locally. And also, we raise our own meat chickens, so we're going to be getting some meat chickens here in the coming weeks, and we plan to do a full video on how we raise our own chicken, and we will share that with you all here on YouTube. Now that we have finished wrapping our meatloaf with bacon, we're going to put it in our oven at 425 for 45 minutes and let that bake until it's crispy. This meatloaf can get a little bit greasy, so I decided to go ahead and cut it up and move it over to a separate plate so that it could drain some of the grease off before we served it. We are moving on to peeling potatoes now for our mashed potatoes. So I usually peel about 10 or so potatoes to feed my family of 5. Like I said, we like to eat leftovers, so nothing ever goes to waste around here. Before I start peeling and chopping my potatoes, I always make sure to get a pot of water on the stove boiling with a little bit of salt. The salt helps the water boil faster, but that way, as soon as I'm finished peeling and chopping the potatoes, I can toss them straight into the water, and it just makes the whole process of making homemade mashed potatoes go a lot faster. So I've got my garden fresh green beans frozen in a Ziploc bag, and I go ahead and add those into a pot of boiling water on the stove with a little bit of salt. It was fully boiling, and I allowed them to boil for quite a long time since they were frozen. And I've also got the mashed potatoes boiling at the same time. All of this is going on while the meatloaf is still cooking in the oven. That way everything can be done at the same time and hot and fresh for everyone to eat. I go ahead and drain the green beans after they have cooked for a while, and I drain all the water out, and then I add in some butter and salt and pepper and allow it to cook in just about a 1/4 inch of water in the bottom of the pan until it's absorbed all of the butter and seasonings. I also fried up a few pieces of bacon so that I could add those to the green beans. I go ahead and strain my boiled potatoes into the colander in the sink, and I go ahead and open up 1 stick of butter. It is salted butter as well. I like to use my hot potatoes to sort of melt my stick of butter, so I pour it right over top, and then I just use a potato masher to mash my potatoes up. I'm also adding in a little bit of our raw milk. It's really creamy, so I didn't add too much in there. There may be a 1/4 cup. I add in a couple of tablespoons of sour cream. We love sour cream in my family, so we always add that in. And sometimes I add in cream cheese to our mashed potatoes as well, but I didn't this night. So I also just put in a little bit of salt, and then I just let the kids pepper their potatoes because they don't like pepper. Sometimes they don't like too much of it, so I just let them do it themselves. Now that the bacon is done cooking, I go ahead and get the grease off of it with a little bit of paper towels, and then I go ahead and chop it into small pieces since I'm going to add it in with the green beans. Of course, I ate a piece as well. So I just go ahead and chop it like I said and add that straight in with my green beans. I just think the flavor of the bacon just makes the green beans taste a lot better. Something I've been doing a lot lately is setting the table with some nice dinner plates, napkins, and utensils, and just sitting the food right on the table. It just brings us all together. I love having our family meals around the table and just having conversation with each other. We're so happy that you guys are here on our channel, The Bluegrass Family. We would love for you to like and subscribe and follow along with us, so have a great day.